It was past midnight, that hollow hour when even the city seemed to hold its breath. Mara sat on the cracked linoleum of her cramped kitchen, knees to her chest, a threadbare baby blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. The lights were out, not for ambience, but because the power company didn't do mercy extensions. From the bedroom, Noah wailed again. His bottle that night had been mostly water. Mara tried not to look at the empty formula can on the counter. She picked up her phone with shaking hands, thumb hovering over her brother's contact. Ben had helped before. Grudgingly, resentfully, but he'd helped. She hated asking again. Tonight wasn't about pride. It was about a hungry baby who didn't understand why his stomach hurt. She typed, "Ben, I'm sorry to bother you again. I need $50 for formula. Noah's almost out. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, please." Her thumb trembled as she hit send. She didn't double-check the number. She didn't look at the name. She just set the phone down, let her forehead drop to her knees and waited. 5 minutes later her phone buzzed. "I think you meant to send that to someone else." Mara blinked, sat up, grabbed the phone, and stared in horror. One wrong digit. She'd texted a stranger. Her stomach bottomed out. "I'm so sorry," she typed. "Wrong number. Please ignore." She locked the screen and tossed the phone aside. Pulled the blanket closer. One more humiliation on top of all the others. 3 blocks away and 30 stories up. In a penthouse office that looked down on half the city, Jackson Albright stared at the message on his private phone. He never gave this number out. No press, no assistants, not even most of his executives. Family only. And that list had gotten shorter every year. The text wasn't spam. It wasn't a scam. It was bare and unvarnished. He read it again, filling in everything between the lines. "Noah's almost out. I get paid Friday." It wasn't just a money request. It was a mother bargaining with her own dignity. He should have ignored it. Most nights he would have. Instead he typed, "Is your baby going to be okay?" Mara stared at the screen. What kind of stranger followed up like that? Her first instinct was to block him. But something about the question, simple, direct, with no judgment attached, made her hesitate. "We'll manage," she wrote. "Sorry again. I can help," came back almost instantly. "No strings." She let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers." Smart policy.
I'm Jackson.
Now I'm not a stranger. She didn't reply. She went to Noah, rocked him until his cries turned to hiccups, then to heavy breaths. She cried too, quietly, with the kind of grief that comes not just from being broke, but from being so tired of it. And then she did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She sent him her Venmo. 3 seconds later her phone buzzed again. $5,000 received from Jackson Albright.
Mera frose.
She opened the app. Checked. Checked again. $5,000. "This is too much," she typed, fingers clumsy. "I only needed $50. "It's already yours," he replied. No catch. One less thing to worry about. She hadn't cried when she was laid off. She hadn't cried when they towed away her car. She hadn't cried when Noah's father stopped answering calls the day she told him she was pregnant. But this undid her. Her hands shook. "Thank you," she wrote. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he answered. "Just take care of Noah." She stared, blinking back fresh tears, then stilled. She'd never told him her baby's name. Mara didn't sleep. Even after Noah drifted off with a full belly, his breathing slow and soft, she sat awake on the edge of her mattress, clutching her phone like it might dissolve. $5,000. Still there. Still real. She stared at the screen, daring herself to believe this wasn't some elaborate scam, that it wasn't bait for something worse, that this Jackson didn't plan to call in a favor she couldn't pay someday. People didn't just wire thousands of dollars to strangers. Not to her. She opened their chat again, scrolling back to his last message. "Just take care of Noah." No emoji. No tralingilipses. Just plain steady words. That certainty was what scared her most. The way he typed, she had the unsettling sense that doing things like this wasn't unusual for him. She typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, you didn't have to do that. A minute. 2. The phone stayed dark. Relief and disappointment tangled in her chest. Maybe that was it. A wild, impossible one-off that she could compartmentalize and pretend never happened. The phone buzzed. "I know I didn't," he wrote. "I wanted to." Across town, Jackson leaned back in the leather chair he'd never once found comfortable. He was still at the office. He was always still at the office. Not because he needed to be, but because his penthouse hadn't felt like home in a long time. Not since, he shut the thought down. Floor-to-ceiling glass reflected the city's skyline back at him. Cold, polished, distant. A perfect mirror for the life he'd built. His phone buzzed again. "Why would you help someone like me? You don't even know me." He stared at that question longer than he should have. Most people who contacted him wanted something. Access capital, a quote, his name on a board. This was the first time in a very long time someone had asked honestly why he cared. So he told her the truth, or a slice of it. "'Cause once someone helped me when they didn't have to," he typed. "I've never forgotten." There was a pause, then, "I want to pay you back." His brows rose. For what? For the formula. For the kindness. For not ignoring me. Another beat. "I'll figure it out." His jaw tightened. She wasn't fishing for more. She wasn't angling for a job, rent, or some larger rescue. She was still clinging to her pride with both hands, even while drowning. He respected that more than he expected. "Tell me what kind of formula Noah needs," he wrote. "I want to send more." "Not money, supplies." "Only if it's really no strings," she answered. "I don't do strings," he replied. "Strings are for people playing games." The next morning, a knock jolted Mara upright on her sagging couch. No one knocked here. The landlord texted. Her neighbors pretended she didn't exist. Heart hammering, she tugged on a hoodie, padded to the door and checked the peephole. Delivery driver. Uniform. Hand truck. For massive boxes. What the? She opened the door a fraction. "Delivery for Mara Jensen?" he asked. She nodded. "Signature here." She scrawled her name and dragged the boxes inside, one by one, splitting the tape with a butter knife. Formula. Diapers. Wipes. Bottles. Organic baby food pouches. Tiny clothes. None of it cheap generic brands either, the kind of stuff smiling moms posed with online, standing in perfect kitchens with perfect lighting. At the bottom of the last box lay a small envelope. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. He should have what he needs. Noah deserves better than barely getting by. Jackson no logo. No return address. No clue where it had been ordered from. Just a name she still hadn't attached to a face. But she felt it. A strange warmth unfurling inside her. Tangled up with suspicion. Who was this man? And what did he really want? Mara didn't touch the boxes again for hours. They sat in the corner like a dream she was afraid to disturb. Noah slept in her arms after his first completely full bottle in 3 days. She didn't move. She just watched his chest rise and fall and tried to understand the new world she'd stumbled into. She wasn't naive. People didn't do this. Not without a catch, not without cameras, not without some angle. Yet there were no DMs, no viral posts, no #gooddeeds hashtag. Just silence. And that name. Jackson. Not exactly common. Mara reached for her phone and opened a browser. She hesitated. She didn't want to know. She needed to know. She typed, Jackson Albright. The search results loaded in an instant. Jackson Albright, CEO of Helix Core Industries. Net worth, $11.8 billion. Private tech magnate. Former military. Media shy. Widowed. No children. Her stomach flipped. This wasn't just a generous stranger. This was him. The billionaire with the AI medicine patents. The one tech outlets called the ghost mogul. Because he dodged interviews like they were landmines. There were only 3 official photos. All serious, all unsmiling. In one he walked out of a Senate hearing jaw rigid, eyes cold. He didn't just live in another world. He built it. So why was he texting her? Why had he sent $5,000 and half a nursery to a woman with no job, no car, and a roof that leaked when it rained sideways? Mara's hands shook as she flipped back to their messages. Noah deserves better than barely getting by. That didn't sound like a billionaire. It sounded like someone who knew what hunger felt like, and had sworn never to feel it again. Why are you really doing this? She typed at last. He didn't answer right away. 10 minutes. 20. Her hope curdled into embarrassment. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he'd realize she wasn't worth the effort. Then, because I know what it's like to lose someone you can't save, he wrote. And because no child should ever have to feel that kind of pain. The words hit her like a physical blow. They weren't pitying. They weren't performative. They were just bluntly, painfully true. I don't want your pity, she sent back. It's not pity, he replied. It's recognition. She leaned her head back against the peeling wall and closed her eyes. Silence pulsed between them for a while. Then, do you work? He asked. The question landed like a jab. I did, she answered after a moment. Until Noah. The company folded. The only daycare I could afford shut down. So no. Not right now. What was your field? Biochem research. Diagnostics. I interned at NovaGen before things got complicated. You were in research? Yeah. But I also know how to scrub toilets, pull espresso shots, and calculate taxes I can't afford to pay. She didn't expect a reply. It came anyway. Come to Helix Court tomorrow 11 a.m. Ask for Ava. No strings. Just a conversation. You're offering me a job? She wrote, stunned. I'm offering you a chance to take one back. Mara hadn't set foot in a downtown high-rise in almost 2 years. The last time she'd walked into an office tower, she'd been wearing heels that tore up her toes and a badge that said temporary contractor. Today she wore her cleanest jeans, a thrifted blouse, and a pre-pregnancy blazer she'd coaxed into buttoning. Noah's carrier strap cut into her shoulder. She stepped through the revolving doors into Helix Core's lobby and stopped. No marvel columns. No ostentatious art. Just clean lines, high ceilings, daylight, and an efficiency that made her feel instantly underdressed. The receptionist glanced up. Balkuma. Can I help you?
I'm Mera Jensen.
I'm here to see Ava. The woman's face brightened with immediate recognition. Of course. You're expected. 37th floor. Ms. Lin will meet you at the elevator. Expected. Mara mumbled thanks and followed the understated signage toward the elevators, eyes flicking over glass cases of awards and patents, Helix Core's logo etched in brushed steel. Nothing about this place tried to prove its importance. It knew. By the time the elevator slid open on the top floor, her heart was pounding. A woman in her mid-40s with sleek black hair and a tablet under her arm waited in the hallway. Mara? I'm Ava Lin, Chief of Staff to Mr. Albright, she said, offering a firm, warm handshake. He's in back-to-back meetings, but he asked me to show you around and answer questions. They walked down a corridor lined with glass offices and discreet security cameras. I'm not sure what this is, Mara admitted after a moment. Honestly, it feels like a setup for a punchline. Ava's mouth quirked. Mr. Albright doesn't do punchlines. He does precision. She stopped at a wide door near the end of the hall and held a badge to the censor. He wanted you to see this first, she said, pushing it open. Inside was not an office. Soft drugs. A crib in one corner. A changing table. Shelves of toys. Blackout curtains. A rocking chair. A fully outfitted nursery. Mara's hand flew to her mouth. He thought it might make things easier, Ava said quietly. Mara stepped in on unsteady feet. Nothing was over the top. Everything was practical, thought through. Bottles. Wipes. A stack of spare onesies in multiple sizes. Every detail said the same thing. Someone had paid attention. Why? She asked, turning back to Ava. Ava's gaze was steady. Because he knows what it feels like to walk into a place like this alone. Mara swallowed hard. Coffee. Ava offered gently. 20 minutes later, Mara sat in a smaller conference room with a mug cradled between her palms, Noah dozing in his carrier at her feet. Papers she hadn't dared to touch lay on the table. The door opened. She looked up as Jackson Albright stepped inside. Seeing him in person hit harder than any photo. The expensive suit, the measured stride. That was all familiar from the articles. It was the details that surprised her. The faint shadows under his eyes. The day-old stubble. The subtle tightness in his jaw that never made it into press shots. He looked like a man who built empires and hadn't slept in a long time. Mara, he said like they'd met 100 times. Thanks for coming. She got to her feet, suddenly very aware of her second-hand blazer and the baby spit-up she'd missed on the shoulder. I wasn't sure if I should, she admitted. You did anyway, he said. That's what matters. He sat opposite her, forearms resting on the table, attention fully on her in a way that was almost disorienting. Before anything else, he said, I want to be clear. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me gratitude, loyalty, or a particular answer today. I'm not here to rescue you. I don't believe in charity in the way most people mean it. He slid a folder toward her. But I do believe in investing in the right people. Why me? She asked, voice thin. He looked down at his hands for a second, then up again. Because you didn't ask for a shortcut, he said. You didn't expect anything. You were willing to go without before you let your kids suffer. A person like that. He shrugged lightly. I trust them faster than someone with a perfect resume. Her throat tightened. She opened the folder. Temporary position. 3 months. Audit support within Helix Core's finance division. Flexible hours. On-site or remote. Compensation figure that made her blink. This is real, she asked. Yes, he said simply. She looked down at Noah, then back at Jackson. And the nursery? Also real, he said. I don't expect you to leave him with strangers. For a long moment they just sat there across the table. Her with last month's rent still unpaid. Him with a net worth that made headlines. Okay, she said finally. I'll take it. On her first official day, Mara wore the only business casual outfit that hadn't been sacrificed to last winter's rent panic. The pants were tighter than she remembered, but they closed. She tied her hair back, put on minimal makeup, and walked into Helix Core with Noah strapped to her chest in a soft gray sling. No one stared. That rattled her almost as much as the building itself. The receptionist greeted her with a cheerful, "Good morning, Ms. Jensen." Back again. Like she belonged there. The elevator doors slid open the second she approached. Ava waited with 2 coffees in hand. Noah's room is ready, Ava said as they walked. And yours is right across the glass. IT's already set up your access. Let me know if you hit any walls. That's all? Mara asked. That's all, Ava said, amused. Her office was compact but sleek. Wide desk, dual monitors, an ergonomic chair she was afraid to sit in. A glass partition behind her looked directly into the nursery, where Noah was already gurgling at a pile of plush blocks under the watchful eye of a childcare specialist. He had no idea his entire universe had shifted. Mara sat down slowly. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. It had been over a year since she'd touched an internal audit system. Back then, she'd been finishing a diagnostics project that died overnight when the company folded. But as she opened her email, skimmed internal documentation, and pulled up Helix Core's financial logs, something deep in her chest stirred. Her brain slid back into old grooves. Baseline variances. Vendor codes not matching project codes. Transfers that didn't line up cleanly with activity. It was like picking up an instrument she hadn't practiced in too long, and realizing her fingers still remembered the song. She worked in silence for over an hour, pausing only when she sensed someone at the doorway. Jackson. No suit jacket today. Just a black button-down with the sleeves rolled, dark slacks, and that same contained energy. May I? He asked. She gestured toward the chair. It's your company. He stepped inside, glanced automatically through the glass at Noah, then back to her screen. Settling in? He asked. I haven't broken anything yet, she said. Give it time. One corner of his mouth lifted. He leaned forward slightly. You're already in the reconciliations directory. I thought I'd start with third quarter reports, she said. There are a few vendor payouts that don't line up with project records. You found that already? He asked, more thoughtful than surprised. They're not particularly well hidden, she said lightly. His expression sharpened. Does anything feel off? I've only been in the system an hour, she said. But yeah, either someone's rounding numbers in ways that make zero sense, or someone's burying something in the noise. His jaw tightened. You don't have to dig deep yet, he said. Start surface level. Right, she said. Except I don't really do surface level. His gaze met hers. Neither do I. Then he stepped back out. That afternoon, Ava appeared with lunch she hadn't ordered. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, iced tea. Mara was mid-bite when an internal chat pinged her screen. Keep this between us. If you find something that doesn't look right, bring it straight to me. No one else. Not even Ava. Understood? Her fingers hovered over the keys. You expect me to find something? She typed. I expect you to see things others won't, he answered. She leaned back, eyes drifting to the nursery. Noah slept in the crib, fingers clutching a tiny stuffed fox. Sunlight cast a soft glow across his hair. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was scrambling to catch up with the world speeding past her. She felt aligned, maybe even useful. By the end of her second week, she'd fallen into a rhythm. Black coffee, kiss Noah's forehead, quiet promise to stay ahead of whatever life threw next. She arrived early, sometimes before Ava, occasionally even before Jackson. She always checked Noah first. He'd adapted to the nursery faster than she had to her office, content with a revolving cast of toys and snacks. Mara, meanwhile, lived inside spreadsheets and log files. She didn't treat the position like a lifeline. She treated it like a problem to solve. On Friday she found it. Not a smoking gun. There never was. A vendor name, repeating just often enough to nag at her. The amounts varied, $1 $200 here, $2,400 there, always just under an internal audit threshold. And attached to project codes that didn't exist in any real division. She double-checked. The vendor wasn't tied to any legitimate department. Yet the payments had gone through, approved and processed, folded under stacks of real transactions. Over a fiscal quarter, they added up to a number you couldn't shrug off. Mara copied the vendor code into a private folder and traced the money. The payments funneled into a holding company in Delaware. Trinox Solutions LLC. No website. No staff listing. Just a registered agent that specialized in keeping names off the record. Not sloppy embezzlement. A system. Someone inside Helix Core was siphoning funds slowly, precisely, and they were very, very good at hiding it. She didn't call Ava. She didn't loop in finance. She remembered Jackson's instruction clearly. Bring it to me. She copied the files to an encrypted flash drive, slipped it into her bag, and messaged him. I need 5 minutes. It's important. His office overlooked the city like a command post. Floor-to-ceiling windows, blinds half-drawn, desk almost bare. A tablet, a leather notepad, a framed photo turned slightly toward the wall. He looked up as she stepped in. You found something, he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded and held out the drive. It's not proof yet, but it's enough to raise alarms. He plugged the drive into his monitor and scrolled, eyes moving faster as he clicked through her notes. You pulled this from Q3? He asked. Yes, but it started earlier. The vendor isn't real. The payments run through a shell in Delaware, each masked under smaller, legitimate invoices. He leaned back, exhaling through his nose. You're right, he said quietly. It's clean. Too clean. Whoever set this up knows our controls inside out. Which means someone with serious access, she said. Maybe someone who helped design the system. He looked at her then, something like grim confirmation in his eyes. I've been watching numbers drift since late last year, he said. Every time I asked finance, I got polished explanations. Rounding. Seasonal fluctuations. New contract structures. No one wanted to chase it. So why not bring in an outside firm? She asked. He hesitated. Because I don't know who I can trust, he said at last. The admission sat heavy between them. She understood that kind of isolation too well, the kind carved out of betrayal and loss. It made you second-guess everyone. So what now? She asked. I want you to keep going, he said. Deeper but quietly. No email trails. No shared drives. If anyone asks, you're reconciling back-end billing. You're asking me to investigate your own company, she said slowly. I'm asking you to find the truth, he said. Whatever it is. She held his gaze. And if what I find is ugly? Then, he said without blinking, we deal with it. That night, Mara lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling of her apartment. Noah was curled against her, one tiny fist pressed to her ribs. She wasn't afraid of digging. She wasn't afraid of the fallout. What rattled her was what she'd already seen in Jackson's face. He'd suspected. For a while. He just hadn't wanted to believe it. She woke early to a heavy, watchful silence. Noah slept on, mouth pursed in a tiny frown like he was negotiating something in his dreams. In the kitchen, the bathroom faucet still dripped. She hadn't called maintenance. She didn't want anyone in her space while half her life lived in a secret folder labeled proof. By 7:30 she was back at her desk on the 37th floor. Coffee cooling beside her as she dug deeper. Trinox had an address. A downtown mailbox drop. No listed owners. Just an executive agent known for anonymity. This wasn't greed. This was planned extraction. At 9:06 a.m., Jackson walked into her office without knocking. "Trinox," she said before he could speak. His brows lifted. "You found it," he said. "It's a holding shell. No employees, no physical office. I tracked 4 payments this month alone, each from a different department. All under compliance thresholds. It's surgical." He looked worse than he had the day before. Rumpled tie. Phone still in his hand. That faint, haunted look again. "I need you to keep this on your machine only," he said. "No backups, no email." She nodded, then leaned forward. "How long have you suspected this?" she asked. His jaw flexed. "Long enough to know whoever's doing it doesn't care about this company or the people working in it," he said. "And long enough to be sure it's someone close." "You think it's someone in your inner circle," she said quietly. "I know it is," he answered. "Then why not go to the board?" she pressed. "Because 2 of them are already compromised," he said. "They blocked my last attempt at an internal audit. If I move wrong, this explodes in my face. I become the paranoid billionaire trying to scapegoat a loyal CFO. You become the desperate single mom I manipulated to cover my own mess." Her throat tightened. "Then we find proof he can't spin," she said. He studied her. "You're still in?" he asked. "I was in the moment the math didn't add up," she said. He pulled a folder from his jacket, slid it across the desk. "I want you to see someone," he said. She opened it. A photo stared up at her. Mid-40s. Clean cut. Expensive suit. Careful neutral smile. "Vincent Harmon," Jackson said. "Chief Financial Officer." She'd seen the name on internal memos. "He came on 2 years ago after my last CFO resigned," Jackson continued. "He overhauled our finance structure, centralized control under his team, and quietly removed several cross-checks in the name of streamlining compliance." "You think he's behind this?" she asked. "I'm certain," Jackson said. "Proving it is the hard part." "You want me to find the crack," she said. "Exactly." She closed the folder. "And when I do? Then we move," he said. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "By the way," he said, "Noah's already popular." She blinked. "What?" "He lectured my assistant yesterday when she tried to take his giraffe. 4 syllables of pure outrage." A laugh escaped before she could swallow it. Jackson smiled, a small worn thing, and left. That afternoon she worked straight through lunch. Vendor lists, memo trails, access logs. She found an email where Vincent's assistant requested override access to procurement records for executive audit preparation. The date lined up with the first payment to Trinox. She exported it, encrypted it, and added it to the proof folder. At 5 her eyes ached. She slipped into the nursery and dropped into a padded armchair by Noah's crib. He slept with his thumb in his mouth and the giraffe's tail clutched in his fist like a weapon. She leaned her head back and let the quiet wash over her. It was safe here. Nearly peaceful. That, more than anything, frightened her. She didn't trust silence anymore. Not in a nursery, not in an elevator, and definitely not in a system someone had gone to this much trouble to manipulate. Silence meant someone was hiding something. By Monday, she documented 15 suspicious payments tied to Trinox, each signed off by a different lower-level approver. Same shell, same quiet drain. She waited until Noah was settled, then walked straight into Jackson's office without knocking. He didn't look surprised. "You found more?" he asked. "Yes," she said, handing him a printed report marked up with highlighter and timestamps. "And I think I know how they're hiding it." He read in silence. "I cross-checked every Trinox payment with internal user IDs," she said. "The approvals come from different logins each time, but every single one originated from the same device." "Ghost credentials," he said. Either cloned or hijacked. She nodded. They're not forging data. They're using real accounts. That's why traditional audits missed it. On the surface, everything's clean. Except it's all a lie, he murmured. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't curse. He just sat there with the resigned stillness of someone who'd finally seen the last piece click into place, and hated what the picture showed. What do you want to do next? She asked. He leaned back. We need confirmation, he said. Evidence no one can erase. Someone in this building knows more than they've said. He picked up his phone. Ava, he said when she answered. I need Vincent scheduled for a check-in tomorrow morning. Make it informal. Just him and me. Mara stiffened. You're bringing him here? She asked when he hung up. If we spook him, he shuts it down. If we stall, he rewrites the narrative and paints me as unstable, Jackson said. He's betting I won't risk noise. He's wrong. You okay with that? He added. I'm the one who walked in, she said. I'm not walking out now. He studied her a moment. You know, he said. Most people in your situation would have taken the paycheck and kept their head down. I stopped being most people the night I watered down my kid's formula and pretended it was enough, she said. That night, she worked from her kitchen table, laptop open, eyes gritty. She combed through system backups, messaging logs, anything that might corroborate what she'd already found. She knew exactly how dangerous almost there could be. That was when people noticed you. midnight, her phone buzzed. Still awake? Came from Jackson. Obviously, she replied. You should sleep. You should follow your own advice, he sent back. We're going to get him. When we do, it's going to get loud. I want you ready. I'm always ready, she wrote. I just never had backup before. He didn't answer right away. Then you do now. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. sharp.
Mira said her disk, stomach knotted.
Noah napped behind the glass, blissfully unaware that the man quietly bleeding this company dry was about to sit across from its CEO. Jackson had told her to stay put and monitor the security feed. She pulled up the conference room camera from one floor below and adjusted the angle. It was a strange déjà vu. Watching a room she wasn't in, knowing a conversation on that screen would reroute the course of her life. At exactly 10, the door opened. Vincent Harmon walked in like he owned the air. Navy suit, perfectly tailored. Confident, bored, polished. Jackson was already seated. No hands check. Appreciate you making time, Jackson said, voice calm. Of course, Vincent replied smoothly. I always have time for the boss. Mara studied his face. The lazy assuredness. She'd seen it in interview panels, in boardrooms, in parents' lounges at daycare. The look of a man who believed he was 3 moves ahead. I've been reviewing some of the quarterly financials, Jackson said. I noticed a few irregularities. We've streamlined processes quite a bit this year, Vincent said with an apologetic tilt of his head. Maybe too fast. Growing pains. That's on me. Streamlined is one word, Jackson said. There's a vendor, Trinox Solutions. Familiar. Vincent's expression barely flickered. Doesn't ring a bell. Facilities. Security. Apparently both, Jackson said. And research. And legal. Remarkable reach for a company no one can contact. I'll have my team look into it, Vincent offered. Get you a report. You are your team, Jackson said quietly. You were the first to approve those payments. A beat. Mara's nails dug into her palms. I know what you've been doing, Jackson said. I have the logs. Device IDs. Login patterns. Shell accounts. You moved money through dummy vendors and funneled it into shadows. You thought no one would dig. Vincent's mouth twitched. Irritation? Amusement? You've been listening to your new pet accountant too closely, he said. Mara's chest went cold. Jackson didn't flinch. Her name is Mara, he said. And she saw what you didn't bother to bury deep enough. And what, you two have been bonding over spreadsheets and baby bottles? Vincent snorted. Mara's pulse spiked. You're done, Vince, Jackson said, voice low. No, Vincent replied, that thin smile returning. You are. The words hung in the room like a blade. He reached into his jacket and set a flash drive on the table. You're not the only one who's been collecting data, he said. I have emails, message threads, financials that suggest mismanagement, diverted funds, questionable investments. I haven't, Jackson began. We both know you haven't, Vincent cut in. But this isn't about truth. It's about perception. The board is tired of your side projects, your PR fires, your grief. You made the company vulnerable. I made sure it survived. Mara leaned closer to the monitor, breath shallow. And you're telling me this because? Jackson asked. Because I'm giving you an exit, Vincent said. Resign by Friday. Quietly. I've already spoken to 2 board members. They'll support it. Walk away and I leave your little whistleblower out of it. She gets a generous severance and disappears. Everybody wins. Mara's stomach lurched. Jackson regarded him for a long moment. You underestimate me, he said. No, Vincent said, standing, buttoning his jacket. I understand you better than anyone here. You built something great. Now you're too human. And human doesn't last in this game. He left without waiting for a response. Mara closed the feed and forced herself to breathe. They weren't just chasing fraud anymore. They were at war. And Vincent Harmon played foul. Jackson didn't come back to his office right away. For 2 hours, Mara sat in front of her monitor, staring at the empty conference room feed until she couldn't. She printed her report, every transaction, every shell, every log, then marched down the hall and walked into his office. He stood with his back to her, blinds half drawn, staring at the city like it might crack open. I saw, she said. You weren't supposed to, he answered without turning. You really think I'd sit at my desk and not watch? She asked. He faced her then. The exhaustion was no longer subtle. I told you it would get ugly, he said. You didn't say he'd try to bury you, she replied. He has the board, Jackson said. If I go public too early, he spins it. I'm the unstable billionaire clinging to power. You're the desperate mother I put up front to cover my own tracks. Her throat burned. Then we get proof he can't rewrite, she said. He studied her. You're still in, he asked again. I was in the minute I realized these numbers weren't a rounding error, she said. He picked up the report she'd brought, flipped through, then set it down carefully. I have 1 play left, he said. It isn't safe. And it may not work. Define not safe, she said. I've been working with someone off the books, he said. Former FBI forensic accountant. Name's Keller. She's helped me track corruption in other ventures quietly. If we bring her into this, it won't stay quiet. And you trust her? Mara asked. With the truth, he said. Yes. Then bring her in, she said. She'll need everything, he warned. Your files, your notes, your backups. And if Vincent smells so much as a rumor, he'll come after you. Let him try, she said. The safe house wasn't just a contingency line in a document. It was real. Jackson handed her a code and an address written on a plain card. It's owned by a subsidiary, he said. Furnished. Stocked. Stay there until Keller's ready. She didn't ask where it was or how he'd set it up so fast. She packed light. Clothes for her and Noah. Laptop. Drives. A hard copy of the report. Noah fussed at being moved, then settled as soon as she pressed him to her chest. The apartment was small but clean. Neutral furniture. No personal photos. Quiet. She settled Noah into the portable crib already waiting, then sank onto the couch and opened her phone. Jackson. Her name is Keller. She'll call in 10 minutes. Answer. Don't exaggerate or guess. She'll check everything. She tests people. Ready, Mara typed. 10 minutes later her phone rang. Miss Jensen, a crisp female voice said. Yes. This is Keller, the woman said. Mr. Albright tells me you're the one who found the break. I'm the one who noticed it, Mara said. He's the one who knew something was off. Start at the beginning, Keller said. Don't leave anything out. So Mara did. She told her about the midnight text sent to the wrong number. About the $5,000. The boxes on her floor. The nursery at Helix. The spreadsheets. The shell. Vincent. The meeting. When she finished, Keller was quiet. You're good, Keller said eventually. Better than most auditors I've worked with. If even half of what you've described is backed by the files he sent me, We don't just have enough to nail Harmon. We can trace every hand that helped him. So what happens now? Mara asked. Now we verify, Keller said. Then we bait the trap. Adrenaline and coffee carried Mara through the next 36 hours. She didn't tell anyone where she was. Not Ava. Not her landlord. No one. Keller was relentless. She wanted times, device IDs, hash values. She tore through everything Mara had collected and then demanded more. Mara handed it over. All of it. The plan began with a memo. A draft internal realignment notice from HR, flagged confidential, stating that due to upcoming compliance reviews, all executive-level vendor contracts would undergo an external audit. It looked official. It wasn't. They loaded it into Helix Core's system along a path Keller knew Vincent's assistant monitored. Then waited. Jackson didn't sit still. He moved between calls with Keller, conversations with the few board members he still trusted, and the legal team prepping for worst-case scenarios. Ava worked her own quiet channels, acting like nothing had changed. Mara logged in via secure tunnel from the safe house, watching without leaving a footprint. By midday, Keller messaged her. We got a ping. Memo was accessed 3 times in 2 hours. Twice by Harmon's team. Once by Harmon. He knows, Mara typed. We're about to see what he does with that, Keller replied. 3 hours later, Jackson called. He's making his move, he said. What did he do? She asked. He filed an emergency ethics complaint with the board, Jackson said. Claims I bypassed finance, diverted funds into personal accounts, and used company money to bribe an outside hire. He named me, Mara said quietly. Full name, Jackson confirmed. You're his first target. Classic pattern. Isolate, discredit, erase. And will the board buy it? She asked. Some might, he said. Not all. Not if we go first. A beat. Are you ready to do this publicly? He asked. She looked at Noah asleep in the crib, one hand sprawled over his stuffed fox. She thought about nights in the dark mixing bottles with tap water. About the text she'd sent to the wrong number. I've never been more ready, she said. The press release went out at 6:43 p.m. Helix Core initiates investigation into high-level financial misconduct. Short. Surgical. Approved by legal. No names. Just phrases. Forensic irregularities, misappropriated vendor payments, external validation, full cooperation. The same minute it hit the newswire, Keller's team sent a 38-page dossier to the state attorney's office. Transactions. Logs. Signatures. Email chains. All converging on one name, Vincent Harmon. At 8:05 p.m. Mara's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Impressive, Vincent said. I underestimated you. She said nothing. For what it's worth, you were never the main event, he went on. I wanted to take Jackson down. You were just a line item. An accident. Somehow you turned into a problem. Funny, Mara said evenly. That's how most women in power get noticed. By becoming inconvenient. He laughed, humorless. You think this ends here? He asked. I know it does, she said. You won't win, Ms. Jensen, he said. Jackson might crawl out, but you? You're disposable. She hung up. She didn't need to hear the rest. That night, she watched the news with the sound low while Noah slept. No text from Jackson came. She knew he was somewhere bracing for impact. She wasn't afraid of it. By morning, the world had changed. She didn't have to turn on the TV to feel it. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, unknown numbers, encrypted notes from Keller marked read only. The Helix Core statement had gone viral. Finance blogs speculated. Tech outlets dissected. National media picked up the scent. Whistleblower, secret audit, executive fraud. One article mentioned a single mother with a background in forensic analysis who'd uncovered the breach. No name yet. It was only a matter of time. At 8:02 a.m., a text from Ava appeared. Be ready. He's coming in for a final meeting. 9 a.m. top floor. Just him and Jackson.
Mera started.
Should I be there? She typed. Jackson says no. I say, stay close but don't go in, Ava replied. Mara dressed in neutral tones and slipped into the building through a secondary entrance Keller's team had cleared. She went straight to the nursery. Noah was there already, in the middle of a snack, chattering at the caregiver like a tiny CEO. At 9:01 a.m., Mara opened her laptop and pulled up the live feed. Conference room. Jackson at one end of the table. Calm. Composed. Vincent entered, mask firmly in place. "Let's skip the performance," Vincent said. "I know what this is." "Then you know why you're here," Jackson answered. "I'm here because you'd rather burn this company down than let anyone else lead it," Vincent said. "You didn't lead it," Jackson replied. "You hijacked it. You bled it. I kept it alive while you were too wrapped in grief to show up," Vincent said almost gently. Mara's stomach twisted. "You built a career on other people's blind spots," Jackson said. "You targeted mine. You thought no one was watching. You mean her." Vincent tilted his head. "The woman you dragged out of poverty for your redemption arc? You really think anyone will believe her over me?" "I don't need them to believe her," Jackson said. "I have the data. The paper trail. External confirmation. She didn't just notice. She proved it." Mara's hands were ice on the keyboard. "You're making a mistake," Vincent said, standing. "No," Jackson said, rising too. "The mistake was believing you were untouchable." The door opened. Ava stepped in unruffled. "Gentlemen," she said. "I believe we're done. Security will escort Mr. Harmon out. His credentials are already deactivated." For the first time, a crack appeared in Vincent's carefully curated expression. He didn't argue. He just walked out. By 10:14 a.m., the announcement was official. The board, stunned by Keller's evidence, voted unanimously to suspend Vincent pending investigation. All financial decisions tied to his tenure froze. Mara stood at the nursery window, arms folded, watching the city beyond the glass. A soft knock sounded behind her. She turned. "Jackson." He looked exhausted, but his eyes were clearer than she'd seen them. "You were right," he said. "About what?" she asked. "You don't scare easy." She shook her head. "Neither do you." Noah spotted him, dropped his fox, and toddled over with his arms out. Without hesitation, Jackson scooped him up. "How's my co-conspirator?" he asked. Noah babbled something triumphant. "I want you to take tomorrow off," Jackson said to Mara. "Rest. Be with him. You've earned it." "And after that?" she asked. "The day after," he said. "I want to offer you something permanent." He met her eyes. "Head of internal audit. Full autonomy. Direct line to me. Build your team. Build the system you want." "That's big," she managed. "So is what you just did," he said. She didn't answer then. But the answer was already forming. The next morning, she woke to sunlight bleeding through cheap blinds and the soft weight of Noah's hand on her chest. No alarm. No dread. For the first time in months, her body didn't tense the moment her eyes opened. She made coffee in the tiny kitchen of the safe house and stepped onto the narrow balcony. The city hummed below, oblivious. Her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. News segments. Headlines with Vincent's face. Opinion pieces on corporate corruption. One headline caught her eye. CEO takes down own CFO after secret audit. Her name hadn't surfaced from any official source, but her inbox filled with interview requests, LinkedIn messages, even an email from someone at a publishing house asking if she'd considered writing a book. She snorted into her mug. She didn't want a spotlight. She wanted something steadier. Solid ground to build on. At noon, Jackson called. "You holding up?" he asked. She glanced at the muted TV, at a panel arguing about whether Jackson was a hero or a liability. "I'm okay," she said. "It's strange being at the center of a storm I never asked for." "You did ask," he said gently. "You just didn't realize what you were asking for yet." She smiled despite herself. "Maybe." There was a pause. "I wasn't going to say this over the phone," he said. "But I'd regret not saying it at all." She went still. "I don't know what happens next, with the company, with the board," he said. "But I know this. I trust you. And that's not something I say lightly." She sank onto the couch. "I trust you too," she said quietly. "More than I ever thought I would." Another pause. Longer. "I'd like to see you," he said. "If you're up for coming back." She looked at Noah on the floor, stacking cups and knocking them over, shrieking with delight every time. I think we're ready, she said. The return wasn't cinematic. No slow motion, no applause. Mara carried Noah through Helix Corps' lobby, both of them in plain clothes. A few people nodded, some offered small smiles, but no one stared. Ava met her with a badge. Mara Jensen, Director, Internal Audit. Does he know I'm coming up? Mara asked in the elevator. He's been watching the clock since 7, Ava said. When Mara walked into his office, Jackson stood at the window again, hands in his pockets. He turned as the door clicked shut. Notie. Sleeves rolled. He looked lighter. Still tired but not crushed under it. You came back, he said. I was never really gone, she answered. Noah reached out. Jackson stepped forward and took him easily, like he'd done it 100 times. Something in Mara's chest tightened, then eased. You kept your word, she said. He looked at her. Which one? All of them, she said. He nodded once. Then let's make some new ones, he said quietly. 3 weeks later, Mara walked into a boardroom at the head of the table. Not as a temp, not as an assistant, not as a charity case someone somewhere whispered about. As the woman who'd blown open a multimillion-dollar fraud, helped stabilize one of the most valuable tech companies in the country, and done it with a baby on her hip and a mountain of late bills in her past. She wasn't scared anymore. This is the internal compliance framework going forward, she said, clicking through a simple, unforgiving slide deck. Transparent, decentralized, triple audited. No individual, not even the CEO, can bypass it without leaving a trail. She didn't glance at Jackson when she said it. She didn't need to. She could feel him listening. Afterward, an older board member approached her outside the room. You did something rare, he said. You did your job so well you made the rest of us look complacent. I wasn't trying to look good, she replied. I was trying to keep my kids safe. He nodded slowly. Rarer still, he said. That night she stayed late by choice, double-checking logs. The office dimmed automatically around her. You should be home, a familiar voice murmured from the doorway. She looked up. Jackson leaned against the frame, a to-go cup in one hand, the other tucked in his pocket. He wasn't in CEO mode. He was just Jackson. Slightly rumpled. Watchful. You told me to build the system, she said. I'm building it. He walked in and set the coffee beside her keyboard. Come on, he said. Let's get out of here. Go where, she asked. Wherever you want, he said. They didn't go far. Just downstairs. Out onto a quiet side street where the city felt less like machinery and more like something alive. They walked in silence for a while. This is weird, right? She said at last. What is? He asked. All of it, she said. Me. You. The fact that any of this started because I hit the wrong number. I don't think that was weird, he said. She looked over. I think it was the first right thing that's happened in a long time. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding and, for once, didn't argue. In her new apartment, Mara stood in front of the bathroom mirror fastening a necklace she hadn't worn in almost 2 years. A small silver circle on a thin chain. A gift from her sister before she died. It had lived at the back of a drawer under medical bills and eviction notices. Tonight it belonged back on her skin. Noah sat on the floor in fresh pajamas, cross-legged, spoon in hand, applesauce smeared like war paint across his cheeks. She wiped his face while he protested, laughing when he swatted at her. She barely recognized this life. Not because it was perfect, it wasn't, but because it was hers. Her name on the lease. Savings cushion in her bank account. A job that used her brain instead of breaking her back. She wasn't constantly scrambling to patch the next hole. She was building. Later, when Noah slept and the city outside the window hummed low, she opened her laptop. One new email glowed in her inbox, sent from a private internal address Jackson had set up just for the two of them. No subject. One attachment. She clicked it. A screenshot filled the screen. The first message she'd ever sent him. Ben, I'm sorry to bother you again. I need $50 for formula. Noah's almost out. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, please. Below it, his reply, I think you have the wrong number. Her hand flew to her mouth. He'd saved it as The accident that wasn't a message popped up from him a second later. Thought you might want to keep that, he wrote. So you never forget what it took to get you here. You still think it wasn't an accident? She typed. I think the universe is better at hiring than HR, he answered. She laughed, warmth blooming in her chest. After a moment she typed. You ever think about what comes next? Every day, he replied. She stared at the cursor, waiting. Then, I want you and Noah in my life permanently, he wrote. Not just as a team, not just as colleagues, as mine. If you're ready. She read it twice. Not because she doubted him, but because she'd never allowed herself to picture that kind of future so plainly. Then she smiled and answered. Ask me again in person. 1 minute later her doorbell rang.